and welcome to Not One Right Way, the podcast. It's me, Melissa Manuel, she, her, back again with my bestie.
Hello, it's me, Marve and Melissa, they, them, theirs pronouns.
How are you, Marv? It's been a minute since we've recorded.
It has been a minute. I'm doing great. I'm doing okay.
Valid. What are you watching?
You know, I most recently just finished It Chapter 2, which I know it came out many years ago. And I also realized while I was watching it that I never watched the first one. So it was an interesting thing to do. It was a pretty good movie.
Yeah. You missed all the context, but
yeah,
you enjoyed it nonetheless.
Yeah. What about you? How you been doing? What you watching?
Good. I am tired, recovering from Lightbox. That was very exhausting, but super fun. And for those that don't know, Lightbox is a convention in Pasadena where a bunch of studios come and they do panels, and there's an artist alley, and I spend a lot of money. It's great. Other than that, I finally finished, I just mentioned to you, I just finished watching Murders Only in the Building and Agatha All Along. So if that helps the listeners get context on when this is recorded, it's about that time, post-Halloween. Both great. I liked them both for different reasons.
Yeah.
Now we have another special guest this week. All our guests are special and so amazing. This week we have Jonathan Cheung, who worked with me at Sledgehammer on Call of Duty, Vanguard, Modern Warfare 3, and he's just an amazing producer, production coordinator. Everyone say hello to Jonathan.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Of course. How are you, Jonathan? How's it been?
It's been an interesting few months, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been, job searching, trying to figure out what I want to do and kind of get back to what makes me happy and, just figuring it all out.
That's very important. I feel like, for context, everyone, similar to our previous guest, Alex, Jonathan was let go in the layoffs in January. So, the job search is real.
Yeah.
Barb, do you want to head us off?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like important context for you, Jonathan. I am a social worker. I have spent a lot of time talking with people about their deepest traumas, the things that really keep them up at night. So I'm here to really ask the deep questions. Our question to start off today is, what is your favorite hot beverage?
Ooh. Okay. I feel like it's controversial, but I mean, I like tea a lot. I know there's a lot of coffee lovers. I used to love coffee a lot, but the acidity kind of it's messing with me. So I'm more of a tea person now. I really like jasmine tea. So that I usually just drink that once a day as my starter, and then maybe another green tea in the afternoon.
Okay, green tea. That's your usual base tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pleasant. So, when you said jasmine tea, I was just like Uncle Iroh, he does say it's the best tea in the show. So
yeah,
confirmed.
I'm partial to Earl Grey. I like a nice black tea. But also a coffee lover, so the bitterness is good for me.
Funny enough, I'm having a peach black tea right now, so it's really nice.
Nice. What's the weather like where you are? Because I'm here in Albuquerque and it has been raining all day.
It's actually a lot sunnier. Yesterday was a bit colder, but it's really nice outside right now. I'm looking at my window, I'm getting a full sunlight through my windows right now.
Are you still in the Bay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm still in the SF area, really close to downtown.
It does also make sense, your comment. I know it's controversial. I feel like in San Francisco in particular, saying I'm not a coffee lover, you might get beat up. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but
a little tip is I used to be an artist as well. I studied illustration and animation, and I would just find coffee shops in the Bay, just sit down, sketch, people watch kind of thing. And there's so many coffee shops. I think there's one, I think it's Signant or something, or Sextant. It's pretty good but like I never went there. But I see a lot of people go there, and there's like I think Offset is a new one. Like there's so many popping up, or like at least just around. That I'm like, I want to go, but I'm like, I just hope to have tea because I don't think I'll be staying long if I'm drinking a coffee there.
No.
Valid. Speaking of what you did, how about you start telling us about what you wanted to do when you were younger? Did you know you always wanted to work in games? What was young Jonathan's dream?
When I look back at what I wrote down in like kindergarten and like elementary school, apparently I wrote down I want to be a chef, and then it went towards president of the United States.
Whoa.
But then like once I got into high school, I'm like, okay, well, I want to do like something in gaming, so something like computer science or like something like that. But I always really enjoyed art growing up, just because like I had really good art teachers that like made learning really fun. So that kind of just resonated with me for a while, and I really wanted to do art. But I always went, well, I'm being like a realist, and my parents are being like, well, art is rough. You might want to do something that's like computer science or something that is more stable. So I'm like, okay, I'll pursue that. And I did do that for a little while. I found out I'm terrible at math. Fun fact, my first year in college, I thought, okay, I'll just like give it a go. I'll try. I got a C in computer science, and then I should have just flunked calculus. And so that was kind of my wake up call. I was like, okay, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Which
Everyone on this podcast so far has been bad at math. So maybe there's a through line there.
yeah,
We don't need it.
but yeah, through that, funny enough, I met some really cool people. I was living in the dorms at that time, and I learned that I was like, I think below the artists like floor, like where all the artists were living. And I did meet like an amazing artist. Her name is Chelsea Holt. She's a storyboard artist. But I met her, and I actually didn't know San Jose State had an amazing animation program. And she's like, yeah, like we have this amazing animation program. The faculty's great. The classes are really good. And like everyone there is just like, a blast to be around. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'll check it out, since like I was at that point where I'm like, okay, math isn't my strong point. I need to look for something else. And it kind of like reignited my love for art, like just, mostly drawing, sketching. And then I met the program coordinator at the time, Bunny Carter, and we just talked. I showed her some of my art, and funny enough, she was like, "Yeah, like you need to like know more about perspective. Like you need to draw through. You need to pretty much like." It was a miniature like lecture, but at the same time, really good feedback. But at the end of the day, she's like, "Well, if you're serious about this, if you really want it, we just need to do a change of major form, and we can get you in the major." And at the time, I'm like, "Oh, okay, fantastic! I'm gonna do it." And then Alex did mention it, I think, in his episode, saying that, "Oh, you can't get into the major unless like you're kind of like the cream of the crop kind of thing." And then I had that huge feeling of, "Oh, am I really supposed to be here? Should I be doing this?" Like, there was also a bit of guilt of like, "Oh, like, am I taking someone's place?" But just kind of being in a program, like, "Oh, okay, yeah, everyone's at a different level." Some people are also kind of where I am, where they're starting with like basic knowledge or almost zero knowledge, and just want to get into animation illustration. And so being around those people, I'm like, okay, well, if I just go through with this, I should be fine. I should be able to like get onto at least a elementary, or not elementary, but like a basic level of knowledge. And I just did it. I just went to classes. I sketched outside of class. Tried to look for resources, and kind of just learn from the ground up, like how to draw, how to paint. And it was some of the, I would say I had the best 5+ years of my life during that time in college.
Nice. What was your
Really cool.
favorite class to take?
I did have digital painting, which was interesting because I didn't do a whole lot of digital art until I got there. Most of my stuff was just, you know, pencil, paper, and then traditional mediums. And then once we jumped into like Photoshop, I'm like, oh wow, like this is really nice. Like I don't have to worry about like messing up. I can just undo, and it was a lot of fun. And the teacher, um, we had a teacher named Owen. He was the chillest dude ever. We became pretty good friends. I found out that he does like what's it called? I don't think it's like a Renaissance fair kind of thing, but like I think he makes his own armor and does like
Oh,
that type of stuff. And we just talked, and like he was a really cool person to like just talk to and ask for advice. And yeah, his class was great.
That's very cool. I wanted to ask more about your experience at the school. This was at San Jose University?
Yeah, San Jose State. Is the animation illustration program. We have a club called the Shrunken Head Men. Fire it up if anyone's listening out there. Um, it's it's like, I guess, the community that it was our club pretty much, without being like, oh, this is you know what, an anime club or something. Like, it was actually the club for the program. And most of our, I guess, events went through there. A lot of guest speakers came through there too. So like just getting to like talk to industry professionals, like seeing what they do, how it's like working at like other companies, like it's really eye opening. And being able to see that, and kind of just see what companies are doing in terms of like Nickelodeon or Sony and stuff like that. It was great. Like, it was a really valuable resource that I count my blessings that that was even possible in that program.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of schools don't provide that
Hmm.
broad overview of what the industry is actually like. So it's really nice that they offered that to you. And you said you were there for 5+ years?
Yeah, so the major was like a 5-year minimum. Um,
Ah,
I switched majors, so then I had a plus year. Um, and being not that great of an artist, I had to take like kind of like an extra year because I couldn't pass the portfolio exam, which is midway through the program, you have to show that, hey, you've got the knowledge, you've got the spunk to continue on to get your degree. So first time I couldn't, pass it, but they always say like, hey, not everyone passes on the first try. Just like, do some more work, do some more studies, go to figure drawing, and you'll be fine. And then I passed the second time around, but I couldn't get like the classes I needed for that semester. So then I had to, add on an additional year. So I think total I was there for like 7 years.
that's crazy. And
Yeah.
that's just for like a bachelor's degree?
Yeah, it was a bachelor's of fine arts.
Wow, that's a long program, but
Yeah.
it sounds like you learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
mhm. So where did the name Shrunken Head Man came from?
Oh man. So the history of it all, um oh man, we did like a lot of like videos and whatnot about the history of it, where it was like some of the students back then wanted to start like a club for our major, which became Shrunken Head Men. But the name comes from it because we still have the stool. There was a stool in one of the art buildings, or one of the rooms for it, where they had like a paint spillage, or like a paint stain that looked like a shrunken head. And then they're like, oh, like this is pretty cool. And they kind of just took that and went like, hey, let's name ourselves the Shrunken Headmen. And like that's our like logo for it. And we still have that like stool where it has the original like splotch, where it's like a shrunken headman.
Interesting.
That's so niche, and I
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Gotta know the lore.
yeah.
Yeah, that we did. I remember because we also have like this thing called D-Day. I think it stands for Drawing Day. I could be wrong. But we do like kind of like a sketch show, kind of like a variety show on stage for one night. Kind of like it was near the like end of the semester, where we kind of just like get to have some fun, kind of de-stress. And we put on like some skits, skits related to like animation, skits related to like our faculty, to the program, anything like that. And we just have a lot of fun. But we did like do like a drunken history kind of thing.
Mhm.
And we had like I believe it was our club president at the time who did like a drunk history, but it was like the history of the club. and we pretty much just reenacted it with our students, and we had some of the faculty join in, and it was a really fun time just to like kind of give the history of like the club.
That's such a fun experience.
Yeah,
That's a cool club that y'all put together. I hope it's still going strong for others.
yeah. I think I've talked with some of them recently just to see like what's going on and to see like what kind of senior theses are going to be happening for this year. So I'm excited to see what they're doing.
Nice. So how did you get your first industry job?
I graduated, I pretty much just went back into retail. I was selling souvenirs at the pier, and I was just looking for anything. And I went, okay, well, I'm still working on my art. It's not like where I want it to be. So let's see if there's any like production assistant, receptionist, like anything that was entry level at like any gaming studio. And I found a studio called Voltage Entertainment. And at first I'm like, oh, what do they do? And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, they do like a mobile Otome game or like a visual novel game. And I'm like, okay, well, I've played some visual novels, like I have some experience. And I applied and they're like, okay, yeah, let's do an interview. And it was for a production assistant job. And I'm like, okay, like I'm guessing it's gonna be a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of, data management, like just making sure everything's like being archived and stuff. And they're like, oh no, like we need you to do like some light animation, like some 2D animation. So like I ended up having to animate a good chunk of the visual novels. And I wish I could like go like, oh hey, download the game, give it a shot. But the game actually closed down I think it was like 2020, which actually like I'll touch back on it, which is why like I ended up at Sledgehammer. But at Voltage Entertainment, I was animating for a bunch of visual novels. It was really fun. All the stories were LGBTQ friendly. I got to work with some amazing people. My boss, well, not boss, but like my manager, I found out he worked on like some like old cartoons that I watched. Like, was it? It was this one Adult Swim animation. It's like 3D. The guy had like a snake for an arm and like a beak for a nose. It was like I think called like Xander or something
Sounds
Angel or
vaguely familiar.
yeah.
I could
And I'm
picture
like,
it.
I was just like, whoa, like I watched that as a kid. Like you worked on that? Like that's pretty cool. And getting back to the topic, like I pretty much got hired. I asked them like, well, why'd you guys hire me instead of like someone else? They're like, well, we liked your energy and we liked the fact that you knew how to animate and the fact that you had experience in Flash and you had experience in like Premiere. And that honestly was the reason I ended up getting the job. But not really because I had an animation reel or anything. It was mostly because they're like, oh, you have like some cinematography skills. You've worked with the software and coming from an animation illustration school or a program, they're like, yeah, like you had what we needed.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I feel like you have to have so many skills so that
Mhm.
people want you. You can't just be one thing. You have to be like, oh, I'm good at production work, but I could also do art. Just because no one can just be super specialized in one thing. Jobs are trying to get you to do as much as possible. What was your favorite visual novel you worked on?
Oh man, that's a hard one because like I I worked on a lot of them, even like the ones that were like start to finish. And there's so many stories. There's like the protagonist falling in love with like a group of like thieves. One about like kind of like space pirates kind of thing, or like kind of like a Mass Effect kind of style story. The only one that I would say like I really I'm biased because like I helped kind of get it off the ground. It was like this cyberpunk noir story where you're working with some detectives and you're trying to solve like a bunch of cases. And it was like this really interactive version of the visual novel that we had. But I helped kickstart it off, and we made like a kind of like a sister app where it was more interactive compared to like the visual novel we already had. So there was more like puzzle based stuff and like some more games integrated into the visual novel. And I helped I helped prototype some games, troubleshoot it, and then also animated the episodes. So I was really proud of that one. I think it's called like Edge Case Love's Pursuit.
Oh,
But
check it out now.
I
so
wish
sad.
I wish I could say that, but like it's all gone. It's been erased. But
So sad.
I know there must be some people archiving it. Like they probably archived it before like it shut down.
Yeah. Lost media. That's so cool. I always wondered who worked on those things, like the visual novels. It's just fun to get a little background knowledge.
Hmm.
I heard you say Otome games, and my
Hmm.
first thought was, oh, cool. Like, who is the best romanceable character that you worked with?
Like I said, like there's so many that it's like, but like I love the fact that like it varied, right? So like our audience was, primarily supposed to be female because Otome games, but we did branch a lot because like everyone had like, it was really diverse. We had a very diverse cast of like, characters, but then also like our teams were also very diverse. So, having characters that were like non-binary, characters that were like pan and like all that, it was really hard to decide on like a favorite character because everyone's like, they all had something really like interesting about them and something you could just love about them. In terms of like just a personal favorite, oh man, it's hard because there like there's even characters where in the space like Mass Effect the kind of story, there's like a lot of like alien characters too. And there's like an alien bounty hunter and like, oh, I would say like any character that was just their design. I looked for design first and then like reading on what their story is. That's what I usually do. The one, I think her name was Zora. She was like a bounty hunter that was supposed to be an antagonist, but then we ended up like making a whole nother like full story for her. She's one of my favorites because she was like a really badass character, but then like there were moments where she had like a more like vulnerable side. So I think she might be one of my favorites.
It's so awesome that you have too many to pick from.
Yeah. I'm just like hearing more about these visual novels and these games, and I'm like, oh, huh.
Marv's about to start playing all the visual
I'll
novels.
I'll send
Yeah.
you I'll send you a link later because I know I don't want to get them. Oh, they can't even get in trouble because the company doesn't exist, so they can't get DMCA. I'll send you. There's a YouTuber who actually archived a lot of the game, so I'll send you that link.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Marv's like, so interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be watching.
Well,
So how did you go from mobile games at Voltage to working on the Call of Duty?
Mhm. So yeah, so as mentioned before, the studio ended up shutting down. So I'm like, well, I'm back to job searching. So I started looking around and I'm like, okay, well, Sledgehammer's close by and they made Call of Duty. I'm like, I play Call of Duty. Like that should be easy. So I applied and then they got back to me. And then I had an interview. I think it was like with two people. I'm pretty sure one of the interviews was with Bryce. I don't remember the other one, if it was Brianna or if it was Rachel. I think it might have been Rachel. But we got to talking and I'm like, yeah, like I used to be an art student, but like I ended up taking the path of production because like I felt like my art wasn't there yet. And that kind of clicked with us because we all kind of went like, yeah, we were all art students and we kind of just were looking for a job and like our art wasn't really there and we ended up finding production. I feel like at that moment I'm like, oh, I feel like I might be at a place where I want to be. I think there's a place where, it just would feel right. And then I interviewed with two other people. I think one was Nick. And like he just gave me the rundown. I was like, okay, you're gonna be doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, this is very different. Like I was the production coordinator on a Otome game where I animated, and now it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna be implementing stuff and like, using spreadsheets. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this feels more businessy than really creative. But then I heard that I'm like, yeah, no, I'm down with it. Like I just want to learn more about the industry, learn about like what goes on behind just like playing the game. And then I'm like, yeah, sure, like I'll I'll accept the offer once they give it to me. Funny aside is that at the time I was interviewing for them and I was interviewing for I think another company, and then there was like a third one that just said like hey, we'd like to like interview you. It'd be for like a production assistant on an animation team in LA. And I'm like, oh, and they were like an up and coming studio. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. Like, that sounds like a really good place to, learn fast and like kind of get on the ground level of that. And to be closer to animation, which is like something I want to do more. And they pretty much said, okay, we'll do the interview like, I think like next week. But then Sledgehammer was like, yeah, we're going to give you an offer now.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what should I do? I do love animation. I want to do that. But then Sledgehammer's close by. Like, I'm loving the vibes. So I ended up like reaching out to my professors and they're like, no, like, you should decide like what you feel is right. But at the same time, hey, they're giving you an offer right now. If you close that door, you're not going to get that again. And I'm like, that is a good point. And like, I don't even know if I'll get through the other rounds of that animation position. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take Sledgehammer. And that was one of the best choices uh, that I've gone with because even after the interview, I did 2 interviews and they pretty much went like, oh hey, we're looking for someone else with more experience. I count my blessings that I never went, oh, I'm just going to go with this animation opportunity and, hope for the best.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were a hot commodity. Lots of people wanted Jonathan, but Sledgehammer won.
Yeah.
That's, that is very true. I think you never know what's going to happen. But
Mhm.
I was also really glad I took my job at Sledgehammer because that willingness to learn, because there was a lot of stuff there like, do you know how to do this, this, and this? And I'm like, no, but I can learn really fast. And it means a lot to people. Just like, can you come onto a team and be willing to like learn new things, even if it's not what you were expecting? Because your 2 production assistant jobs sound super different.
Right.
Yeah.
Because all production work ends up being very different depending on where you are.
What is your favorite thing that you can do on a spreadsheet?
Ooh. Honestly, I'm really simple. As long as like I'm able to do functions, like, because even nowadays, I'm like, oh, I need to do math for like a trip or like a budget or just after hanging out with friends, I'm like, okay, we need to figure out how much dinner was, and just like knowing how to do a function saves so much time. Like I don't need to pull out a calculator. I'm just like, all right, let's do the function on like cells 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. All right, we're done. That's one of my favorite things. But like, honestly, like just using it for like organization, it's like the best.
It's true. Can't beat a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Do you really pull out like an Excel spreadsheet to split a bill?
Yeah, especially because like
True
fun
producer over
fact.
here.
It's your producer.
I mean, a fun fact, like I'm an anime con or anime convention goer. So a lot of times I'm like, okay, we need to, sort out how much room's going to cost for everyone. What's the gas bill or the gas money going to be like? Because we're carpooling, and just having that on file, knowing like, okay, well, we filled up here for this much money. Okay, let's sort that out. How much is that going to be between like 4 people, and then add that on to our hotel. Figure out like, well, how much is this person going to stay? How much is this person going to pay if they stayed for like 3 nights instead of the 4 nights that the rest of us did? Like just being able to do that, it's like so much easier.
Someone's got to hire Jonathan because he's on another level.
He's on another
True.
level.
I love a spreadsheet, but I have not gone that far yet. Maybe I will someday. Sometimes the functions are hard. I usually like a lot of production work. People have told me it's like you just borrow from the producers before you, and they'll hand you something, and you can work with that. And that is a lot of what I've done. Is like, here's a really beautiful spreadsheet with all the functions built in. Here you go, and now I use it. I'm not as good at building it, but like taking someone's template and then working it, I'm okay at.
I mean, honestly, that I feel is what I did with Jira a lot. Like,
Mm.
because before I'm like, oh, I've only made tickets. I never like, searched for tickets or like actually filtered tickets or like triage tickets. And then just having, other producers, them teaching me like, oh yeah, if you just do this or like if you use this in your search query, you're set. You just have to put that in every time and then save it and you're good. Just check that every day.
I love Jira. but
Yeah.
some of the listeners out there might not know what it is because I definitely didn't know what it is before I worked at Sledge. Can you explain what Jira is?
I mean, I guess like the basic version is like it's just kind of. I mean, kind of like Trello, but then it's task management. It's something that you use to make sure like, hey, what still needs to be done, what's done and needs to be checked, what's just done and we don't have to worry about, and like pretty much just rounding up everything for the project and seeing okay who can do what, who just done what, and then like what's still down the line kind of thing. I mean, yeah, would you say that's accurate or?
I think so. It's a website where you can organize all your data, whether it's just for engineering. I think a lot of people use Jira just for like bugs, like bug tracking. But there's also ShotGrid, which is, I think, more commonly used in film and animation because, as my previous manager, Dean, likes to say, it's better for art. But as someone who's using ShotGrid now, I don't know. I'm kind of struggling. I'm used to Jira. But we use Jira a lot, and it's you make a ticket and you assign it to X person, and it can like unblock the next department. It's a very powerful tool in terms of like keeping track of so many assets and bugs and all these different things, but in one place. You can connect all the data.
Yeah. The tickets, the bugs, the assets. It's not great. Yep. I'm going to look up all of these terms and then put them in my little glossary, and then I will go back and listen to this, and I'll know everything.
We can explain it too
Yeah.
live.
No.
You have to go to the Tumblr if you want the definition.
Oh yeah.
Is what
Yeah.
Marv's saying.
Yeah, everyone
On the
should go to my
Tumblr.
Tumblr. I put a lot of time into it.
It's coming along super great. I like the glossary. Sometimes it's helpful for me. Jonathan, what was your favorite thing you did while working on COD? Because I know you jumped departments a bit.
Oh man. I mean, I would say like just working on the single player side of Call of Duty was really fun. I will say it gave me that moment where I felt like, oh, this is it. This is what I was been dreaming of. This is what I was working towards. I'll give the like what happened was I think we are doing kind of return to office already, or we were kind of ramping up to it. And they're like, oh, we want to like, set up a meeting where our team gets to like, be in a meeting room, have the game on, and play it, and just kind of give feedback and see like, hey, you know, what can be better, what needs fixing, what's good right now, like kind of do that. But I was the one that I had to like set up the meeting, figure out who's coming, what time we need to be in the meeting room by, and then work on the logistics of like, okay, well, you have to work with the tech guys to see like, hey, how can we get this game running, but also how can we get it running if anyone's doing remote still to play the game while we can see it on our side too. So doing that and then finally being in a room with all the devs and like playing the game and just everyone having fun and making feedback and taking notes. I'm like, this is it. This is what game dev is. Like, even though I was like, working at a mobile gaming company, we didn't really have a moment where we're all sitting down and playing the game and giving feedback and saying like, hey, this is what's working well. We did have like some like monthly meetings and showing like this number is doing great for this character, or like, hey, we need to work on this character, stuff like that. But like being in a room with other devs and just really kind of enjoying what you've been doing for like the past few months and seeing it come to life, I feel like that was my dream. And I'm like, this is it. Like, I've accomplished it. And I think that is probably one of my favorite and proudest moments in gaming, honestly, and at Sledgehammer.
Such a beautiful memory. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm. That reminds me, you had mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that you knew that you wanted to go into gaming. What do you think inspired that? Like, was there a moment, a game?
Honestly, it was just my family, because I have a older brother. I lived with my older brother, my uncle, and my dad. And one of my earliest memories is that we had a Super Nintendo in the living room, and I was so small that I didn't know what it really was, how to like control it or anything. So I always asked my dad, I'd ask my brother, I'd ask my uncle, like, hey, can you just play? Like, I just want to watch. And like I would watch my uncle play Super Mario World. Like I remember there was like a overworld map and everything, and just like watching him like play Mario, I'm like, whoa, what is it? This is like really fun, but I can't play it. But like the colors are amazing, the characters and the music, like there's something there. And then I got older and I started like I tried to play like Street Fighter with my brother, but I still didn't know how to like control everything. Like I didn't know how to do special moves. I didn't know how to throw a Hadouken or like, do a Dragon Punch or anything. But like just watching what was happening on screen, I was just enticed. And then I think it was a bit later on, and my uncle got me a PlayStation. And that's when I finally like I knew how to at least use the controller a bit better. And I remember playing, was it like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, like Crash Bandicoot, Mega Man, like all that. It just like really stuck with me, even though I didn't understand a lot of the story stuff because I was still like not at the highest levels of reading comprehension. I was still like, oh man, these characters are so cool. I didn't know what was happening in Final Fantasy 8, but the music, the animation, like that was so cool. And then I think that kind of just stuck with me. And I'm just like, yeah, like I want to tell stories. I wanted to give other people the experience that I experienced as a kid. That was kind of my main goal as soon as I grew up. I'm like, yeah, I want other people to experience it. Like there might be a kid that is stuck at home most days and all they really have is video games. And I want them to have like a good experience, have like some good stories, and just get immersed in another world. Because we don't know what's going on with everyone's lives, but like being able to have a way to just escape through its form of video games is really powerful. And I just really want that to continue. I just want other generations to still have something to like play.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's
So
really beautiful.
when you were in this meeting, it was kind of a culmination of these experiences, finally seeing yourself and the people who are also developing these games. How that moment of like, this is what we've created and it's fun and it's good.
Mhm.
Wow.
It Yeah, I never understood like how to describe that feeling of like when you're just there in the moment, but like everything just feels right, and you get that like sense of like warmth. Like I feel like there's a word for it. I just don't really know what it is, but like that was that moment. And like that's the thing, like I'm always kind of chasing that moment again, because there are other times when it's like, oh yeah, like you're just like, I think it's closer to like when you're with a group of friends and maybe it's like been like a long night and you're all kind of just settled down for a meal and everyone's just like having fun talking, and you're kind of just in that moment and you're like, oh, like everything's gonna be all right. You're with people who like mean a lot to you, and the vibes are just really good. And that's kind of how I felt during that time.
I just wanna say, I'm trying to remember, like, that exact moment for me because I always kinda knew I wanted to do production, which isn't the traditional way. Most people stumble into it, is what I've realized. But I think I've had small moments at each where, like, I overcome this
Mm.
problem that's blocking people and everyone's mad, and it's like, "It's gonna be okay. We're gonna do it. We're gonna make the art, and it's gonna be great." And being able to, like, see how much easier I've made it for everyone always really is so satisfying. I'm just like, I did that through many spreadsheets
Mm.
and long conversations and having maybe some moments of tears, but the end result of being able to know I helped my team and I helped my artists always makes me feel good.
Sure. I have this one moment where one of the young people I was working with like sent me a message like we need to talk. And I was like, "Oh shit." Oh, I answer the phone and they're just like, "Yeah, I took your advice. I did something and it turned out great." And I finally feel like things in my life are lining up and I was just like crying and they were crying and we're just like, ugh, it feels good to to help people, sort of like what Melissa's talking about. Obviously, we do it in very different ways, but yeah, the feeling of like rightness.
Um, go go production work, go social work.
Yeah.
We just love to help people.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I feel like it goes hand in hand, like all of our like careers, because one thing that I love talking about, especially in production, is that we we're not really like therapists per se, like in production side, but like we're kind of like the front lines of like, hey, like checking on people, like if something seems a bit off, like if someone's not turning in their work, it might mean like, hey, maybe something's happening, maybe something we don't know is happening, maybe they're struggling through something, like that's when I'll reach out like, hey, like everything good, like are like is there stress involved, is there something like happening that we're not seeing, because at the end of the day it's like even though we're making a product, it's like people first. I want to make sure like you're not getting overloaded. I want to make sure that your sanity is still intact and that you're not like super stressed out and you're not, anxious about anything. Like, at the end of the day, it's a game. We're all making something for someone. And I mostly just want to care about the people that are working here. So,
I love that you said it's a little bit of therapy. We're not as certified as Marv may be
right.
in their profession, but I went to a panel about production management last weekend and they asked them what's one of the skills that you were most proud of, but most people wouldn't think of. And his name was Sean something, but he works on some big Disney project. Sean Gantka, he worked on like X-Men 97.
Oh,
And he said, therapist. I often am a therapist. There's this line of like, you're not HR, but you still have to, like you said, be there for your team and be able to test like, how are they feeling? Do they need time to like recuperate from whatever's going on in their personal life? And be that listening ear for them because so many people are higher up or busy. But as a producer, you can be that person for them to like that human connection.
hmm.
And so when he said that, I was like, yeah, I guess it does involve a little bit of being the therapist, but just being willing to listen and connect genuinely with people is super important. We have a little bit of time left. We were going to close with some fun questions. What is your favorite anime?
Like, okay, currently or like of all time? Because that's
Do you have a favorite
Anyone.
anime this season?
this season. I mean, okay, I am on that train of Don that came out recently, because that animation is just gorgeous. And
Truly.
because I read the manga beforehand and I'm like, oh, like the story gets really good. Like some of the arcs for the characters, it gets emotional. But like I love that about the story where it's like you can do humor and whatnot, but also throw in that like, the curve where like, oh, okay, was not expecting that, but it's great. But yeah, I'm watching that and then I'm kind of going back because I didn't finish it yet, but I'm now in season 3 of Vox Machina,
Mhm.
and that I just love, like story wise, character wise, animation wise, like that's a really good one that I'm still watching.
I'm wondering if you can weigh in on something. Me and in our previous conversation with Alex, I mentioned that My Hero Academia is for little boys. And my argument for this is if it's in Shonen Jump Weekly, it is by definition for little boys. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you're right by definition because it is Shonen Jump, but I mean, I'm always on that like I'm I'm part of the team where it's like, hey, you don't need to be like any certain age to enjoy like animation, because I'm I don't love it when people discredit like Disney films or whatnot as like, oh, it's for children. You don't That's not something that adults need to be watching. Like, is it the Oscars or the yeah, where they're like, oh, they don't really care too much about who's nominated or who actually wins because they're, oh, my kid watched it. if they like it, that's good. But not if we're not looking into the stories that are being told, it's like, well, I feel like a lot of these stories can be for anyone, everyone. But yeah, I would say like by adaptation, technically, My Hero is for the younger children. But I mean, honestly, just a few days ago for Halloween, I had a coworker dress up as Deku. So
Mm,
I mean, the reach of there is,
true.
Animation is for everyone. It's not just for kids.
So true.
I have such a beef with that take of like, if it's cartoon, it's for babies. And like, some of it is, yes, designed, but it can also be for all people. And then some of them are definitely not for kids. So,
Some are definitely not for
Mhm.
kids.
like, if your kid's watching BoJack Horseman, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
favorite anime of all time then.
Okay, I'm gonna say it's called Darker Than Black. I only say it because like it got me back into anime. Because for a while, I think in between middle school and high school, I wasn't really watching much, and then I got what was it like Xfinity, back when they had like the box and it had on demand, and I found anime, and I'm like, oh, what's this anime called Darker Than Black? And I wanted it's like this kind of more sci-fi esque kind of anime where it's like X-Men, but every time you use your powers, you have to give a price. So like there's a very like the cast is great. I love the voice actors. Like for example, there was like a character where it's like it was an opera singer and she could like resonate stuff with her voice. So like she can like stop someone's heart by just like going at a certain like decibel or like a certain vibration. But every time she does it, she has to like I think it was like kind of like what's it called? Like bulimia, where it's like you have to put something in your mouth, but then like throw it back up. And like for some reason she chose cigarettes. And I'm like, oh, this is like a really interesting kind of like, character here where it's like, oh, well, she's a singer, but then she's using cigarettes to like play her price of like, using her powers. But there were like a lot of characters that had that where it's like, oh, someone could like levitate, but like his price is that I think he had to, I don't know why. I think it was like, okay, I'm forgetting it. I think it was like he had to stack pebbles in like a certain like pattern. Like some of it's weird where it's like, oh, it doesn't make sense. Some guy had to like write poetry after he used his powers. But that's one of my favorite animes. I think it was like directed by the same person that did Cowboy Bebop, but it's been a while, so I could be wrong.
such a wide range of skills there. Like, one person has to choke on a cigarette, the other one's just got to stack some pebbles. I feel like everyone's price super different. It sounds like a very cool show. So, do you watch dubs or subs?
I mean, I love dubs just because like, I can hear it if I'm like trying to get through an anime while I'm trying to like do work or like play games or something. Then a dub is great. But, I mean, I love dub voice actors. Like my one of my favorite voice actors is like John Young Bosch because I grew up watching him as the Black Power Ranger, and then finding out he does a lot of like these hero characters like Vash Stampede and like was it like Nero from Devil May Cry. Just seeing that, I was like, oh, I grew up watching him, and now I'm like growing up playing his games and watching his like animes still. So I lean towards the dub a bit more, but then I also watch a lot of subs because like I feel like it's like different emotions kind of thing. Like I guess like if I can give like one of the examples, even though it's not anime, I was playing Yakuza, was it Infinite Wealth? And I've been a huge fan of Yakuza series, and the Japanese voice actor for Kiryu is like amazing. But then when I was playing the newest one and they did a dub, I'm like, okay, he's like the English dub is doing a great job, but like I'm just so like set on the Japanese voice actor because I've played like so many iterations of his games, and just noticing like, well, he is that character. Like the Japanese voice actor for Kiryu is that character. I can't really play it with the English voice actor. But I'm not saying that it's bad or anything, but like, the English voice actor did great. But, Japanese Kiryu is like the GOAT for me.
Yeah. I like asking because some people are like, if you watch a dubbed anime, you're the worst. Only watch subs. But I'm like you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to do two things at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've taken to watching Revolutionary Girl Utena while I'm doing cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
My mom started watching it too now.
Oh
Oh,
my gosh. Your mom has
She had
fallen
so
into
many
so many
questions.
things.
She is and so she has a lot of questions, and it's just like I'm also trying to clean, and I'm also trying to watch Utena, and I'm also trying to explain to my mom what's going on. The dubs
does
are
she? Oh, sorry.
It's the price you pay, Marv, you know? She
it's the
wants in on
price
the anime.
She just wants to be interested in my interests, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What was your question, Jonathan?
So does your mom does she already watch anime, or is this going to be like her first anime?
The first.
Oh
And it's a
wow.
bad start. I'm just like, yeah, so they're fiancés because she won her in a duel. Yes, mom, they're both girls. No, they're not actually gonna get married. Why are they dueling? I don't it's part of it's how
It's just for funsies. I don't know, I
she's
haven't
like,
seen it.
that's awful. And then I haven't even gotten to the part where it's like, and they're also in high school. Like, I feel like if I said that, my mom would be like, what are you doing? Do you believe in their beliefs?
I was thinking, Jonathan, about you said about how certain voice actors, when you're watching, Marv and I were watching Fruits Basket. One day we'll get back on it, but we're watching the dub, and I watched the original animated one that came out in like 2001,
Oh,
like first to prep for watching the new version with Marv, and the dub voice actor for Kyo was so good that I was worried when we got to the newer version I wouldn't like him, but they got the same voice actor and he's just so perfect. So sometimes those characters do just become the voice.
yeah.
Like, I'm a new anime person, but I have found something I really enjoy. And before we let you go, do you have any advice you'd like to give to people who are either students looking for work, just about trying to break in, whatever you feel comfortable speaking to?
I want to say, well, first of all, stay hungry. Keep finding resources. Keep going to classes if you can. Figure drawing. Keep doing figure drawing, even if it's just going outside and going to a park. If someone's if they're playing basketball, if someone's just hanging out, sketch. Just do as much as you can. That is if you're pursuing art. If you want to do production, just keep at it. It's all about just you're gonna get a lot of rejections. That's kind of like a given. But just keep sending your resumes, keep talking to people, connections, and just don't let that dream go away. Just make sure you keep at it. Because I know I've had moments where I'm like, oh, I'm not that good of an artist. I don't think I'm gonna make it. But then I found out, wait, there's other ways you can still get into the industry. Like you can do production if you're good at other stuff. If you're good at video editing, you could be an editor, right? Because your first episode,
Yeah,
yeah,
Christy.
Christy. There's so many ways that you can still get into industry, even if you can't get in the other way. So just keep finding resources, keep talking to people, see what else that you can do. Because from my experience, I got into a production assistant role just because I knew how to animate, even though it wasn't really a production role.
You might even say there's not one right way.
Exactly.
Roll credit.
Fade to black. Roll credits.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. It's been so fun catching up and
problem.
chatting with you. Do you have anything you want to plug other than say your LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, my LinkedIn is just JONT Chung at LinkedIn, or It's like slash, right? Like LinkedIn slash that. I mean, if people want to find me, I'm on Instagram. I go by Accidental Progress. I want to put more art on there, but right now it's mostly just like, hey, this is what I ate today, and like, hey, I did this, or like, something just documenting my daily life kind of thing. But hopefully, I'm gonna put my art back up in there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jonathan. It's been so much fun.
Likewise, thanks for having me on again. Or
It
yeah,
was
thanks for
good
having me
meeting
on.
you.
That was our conversation with Jonathan. Wasn't that so wonderful? I almost teared up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Are you gonna go watch the Otome YouTube videos?
I probably will. That sounds like a great Sunday thing to do.
Any final words for our listeners today?
No. Thank you for listening, and thank you for hearing all of what Jonathan had to say.
Definitely. This was a fun episode, and we hope you've been enjoying the podcast so far. So please leave a comment, subscribe, like the episode. All of that really helps. And tell your friends.
And remember, there's not
One
right
way.
to create an Excel sheet for your anime convention.
There's not one right way to start a club all about enemy.
There's not one right way to live out your dreams of creating a video game.
There's not one right way to be terrible at math.
People who are good at Excel but terrible at math are the world's strongest soldiers.
It's just a circle. But thank you. I'm one of those.
You're one of those.
Anyway, bye.
Bye.